Hello Year 3 and welcome back to our last lesson of our first week of writing. And remember, we are looking at traditional tales this week. And so we are going to be looking at our last feature, which we can hopefully include in our writing next week. So all I would like you to do is have a pen or pencil and piece of paper at the ready. So pause now if you need to get anything to hand, and then press play when you are ready for me to go through your do now. So I'm going to share my screen with you and explain your do now. So we are going to be looking at conjunctions. Now, if you can't remember, conjunctions are words that bring two phrases or two clauses, so sort of mini sentences together. Now, the conjunctions I've given you are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. What I'm going to do is show you 5 or so sentences. Each one of those sentences is going to have a conjunction. So what I would like you to do now is to write the numbers 1 to 5, like in a list, like you would do for your spellings. And then when you look at those sentences, just write the conjunction you can see. So if you'd like, pause the video and make a note of those conjunctions if it's easier for you. Otherwise, I'm going to show you your sentences. Okay, so 5 sentences there. Number 1 to 5, and just identify the conjunction in each, and that's all you have to write, just the conjunction, not the whole sentence. So pause the video here and I will go through the answers with you when you're ready. Okay, so number 1, the conjunction. It was hot this morning and it was humid in the afternoon. Number 2, I would rather play basketball or soccer. Soccer is the American word for football. Number 3, my dad said I can play football or I can play basketball. Number 4, Elizabeth joined the gymnastics team so she can improve her fitness level. And number 5, I spent ages doing my homework, yet I never seem to get it all completed on time. Okay, that was your first part of your do now. And the second part, I have given you 4 sentences there, and I've given you your conjunctions at the top to make it easier. You have to read those sentences and again, number them just like you did before, but just write the conjunction you would use to complete that sentence. So don't spend time writing the whole thing out, just read the sentence. What conjunction would you use? Write that conjunction. So again, pause the video and take as much time as you need to do that, and I will be here when you want to go through the answers. Okay, so here are the answers. Number 1, the builder worked really hard on the house so that he would receive a good price. Number 2, my dog refuses to eat chicken or fish. Number 3, the flowers in the garden were beautiful, but unfortunately I was allergic to them. And number 4, I felt like having soup for dinner, but I knew my sister would probably disagree. Okay, so well done for recapping conjunctions. Those are going to be really useful in today's lesson, because we are looking at subordinate clauses. Now, these should be familiar to you from our work with Bill's New Frock, but do not worry, we are going to go through them again. So, to recap, clauses are groups of words, so they can be seen like a short sentence, which are built around a verb. And now we know verbs are action words. They are things that we can do. So I've given you some examples there, just so that we can have a little recap. Play, shove, peep, type, listen, wave, watch, astonish. All of those things are actions we can perform, we can do. Now, a main clause is a short sentence which makes sense completely on its own. So in that sentence, you will usually have a subject and a verb, which is what we recapped yesterday. So I've got some examples here. The boy played cricket. The dog wore sunglasses. I want to visit Edinburgh. Each of those sentences makes complete sense on its own. And you'll notice none of them have conjunctions, which is why they're main clauses by themselves. But subordinate clauses are that extra second phrase. They give some extra information about the main clause, which helps make our sentences and our writing a lot more detailed and interesting to read. So I'm going to go back to the dog sentence because that's my favourite, just because I like that picture. The dog wore sunglasses because it was sunny. I've highlighted in blue there my subordinate clause, and you will notice that subordinate clause doesn't make sense on its own. If somebody was to walk up to you and just say, because it was sunny, and then walk off, that would make no sense. You'd be left with a lot of questions. However, when you partner it up with the main clause, everything makes sense and it's a lot more detailed. The dog wore sunglasses. Why? Because it was sunny. Perfect. I've got all the information I need to know about my lovely doggy there. Okay, so let's break it down. What makes a sentence when you're using those clauses? So, as I said, you have your main clause, which was the dog wore sunglasses. You need a conjunction, which is why we looked at them in our do now. The conjunction links both those clauses together. So in this sentence, we used because. And then my subordinate clause was it was sunny. So the conjunction and the subordinate clause go together. You can see that because I've highlighted it in blue. Again, the main clause makes sense on its own. The subordinate clause does not make sense on its own. They need each other. So, because isn't the only conjunction that we can use. Obviously, you looked at some more in your do now, but I have a variety of them here as well. What I would like you to do is take a moment now to pause the video and make a note of all of these lovely conjunctions that you can use in your writing, because it's going to come in quite handy for the rest of the lesson. So you've got if, since, as, when, although, while, after, before, until, because. So pause the video here, write those down and press play when you are ready to continue. Okay, now we've got our list of conjunctions. My task is I'm going to have some sentences and I'm going to show you how to identify the conjunction, the main clause and the subordinate clause. So 3 things I need to look for, and I've got my lovely steps here to help me. So my sentence, it was raining this morning, so I made the decision to remain indoors. So the first thing I need to do is identify my conjunction. It was raining this morning, so I made the decision to remain indoors. My conjunction, and I'm going to underline that in blue, is there. Let's have a look if I was right. Drum roll for Ms. Chowdhury, please. Yep, so was my conjunction. So which is my main clause? Now my second step tells me I have to look at which part, not the of the, let's correct that, which part of the sentence, because that would have annoyed Ms. Chowdhury, which part of the sentence makes sense alone. So what's a really good way to do this is to look at each phrase either side of the conjunction, before the conjunction and after the conjunction. It was raining this morning, that makes sense on its own, so I made the decision to remain indoors. Now, if someone came up to me and said, it was raining this morning, that would make perfect sense. If someone came up to me and said, so I made the decision to remain indoors, and then just walked off, I just have no idea what they were talking about. Why did they stay indoors? So I think the main clause would be, and let's highlight this in, underline this in red, sorry, it was raining this morning. Let's see if I'm right. Drum roll again. Yes, I am. It was raining this morning, which leaves me with my subordinate clause, and I'm going to continue underlining in blue because I know it comes with the conjunction. So I made the decision to remain indoors. Let's have a look-see. Yep, brilliant. I've got my conjunction, my main and my subordinate clauses. Let's have another go. My sentence, the dog barked, which made me jump. Again, I'm looking for, first step, my conjunction. The dog barked, which made me jump. Okay, so in red, my conjunction I know is which. That's my linking word. Let's have a look if I'm right. Yes, I am. Okay, so now I can look for the part of the sentence that makes sense alone. That would be my main. So it's either the dog barked or made me jump. Well, again, if somebody came up to me and said the dog barked, that would make perfect sense. But if someone came up to me and said made me jump and then walked away, wouldn't make sense. I think my main clause, I'm pretty certain my main clause is the dog barked, which means my subordinate clause is, and I'll continue underlining in red, which made me jump. Let's have a look. My main is the dog barked. My subordinate is which made me jump, and that adds all that detail. Okay, so what I would like you to do now is pause the video because you have got a sentence here. I would like you to follow those steps to identify your conjunction, the main clause and the subordinate clause, and I will be here when you are ready to go through your answers. So pause now and have a go. Okay, so for your conjunction, drum roll, it was but. Matt and Stephen strolled to the cinema, but didn't realise they had gotten their money. So but is my linking word there, which brings those two sentences together. Now, your main would have been the part of the sentence which makes sense on its own. So remember, either side of your conjunction. So it would either have been Matt and Stephen strolled to the cinema or didn't realise they had forgotten their money. Hopefully we all got Matt and Stephen strolled to the cinema. That makes perfect sense on its own. My subordinate clause would have been therefore didn't realise they had forgotten their money. Didn't realise they had forgotten their money. And adding my little exclamation mark there as well. Okay, again, your second sentence. So please pause the video, look for the conjunction, and then identify your main and subordinate clauses. Okay, I hope you paused in plenty of time. So the sentence was, Caden practiced his spellings every day since scoring 2 out of 10 in his last test. The conjunction was since. Caden practiced his spellings every day since scoring 2 out of 10 in his last test. The main clause would have been Caden practiced his spellings every day. How do you know? Because it made sense on its own. And then subordinate would have been the other phrase, which was since scoring 2 out of 10 in his last test. Okay, now this is where we are going to learn how to jazz up our writing. So to change up our sentences, we can move our subordinate clause to the start of our sentences. So I'm going to use the previous sentence that we just had. Caden practiced his spellings every day since scoring 2 out of 10 in his last test. Now, you can see I've highlighted the subordinate clause in red. Now, what I'm going to do is do a bit of a swapsy and put the subordinate clause at the beginning. So now my sentence reads, since scoring 2 out of 10 in his last test, Caden practiced his spellings every day. Still makes complete sense. I still have a main, a subordinate, and a conjunction, but I've just changed the way I put things together. Let's try another one. So my sentence is, Halima lazily watched television while Dad hoovered the living room. Okay, so the main clause makes sense on its own. I think that Halima lazily watched television. Am I right? I am, which means the subordinate clause, including the conjunction, would be while Dad hoovered the living room. Now I can do a swapsy. The subordinate comes at the beginning and then my main. So subordinate, while Dad hoovered the living room, Halima lazily watched television. There we go. And you can see, Year 3, that I have used a comma now to separate my main and subordinate clauses. Let's try another one. I made myself a hot cup of tea during my break. Definitely something us teachers do. So my main clause, I made myself a hot cup of tea during my break. Well, during is my conjunction. So I made myself a hot cup of tea would be my main, which means my subordinate would be during my break. Again, I'm going to do a swapsy. Subordinate comes at the beginning. So my sentence will now read, during my break, comma, I made myself a hot cup of tea. Okay, your turn. I usually go for a nice brisk walk after finishing my work for the day. Can you identify the main, the subordinate clause, do a swapsy, and tell me what your new sentence would be? You can either write this down if that's helpful, or you can just say it out loud to yourself. Okay, press pause again if you need some more time, but your main clause here was, I usually go for a nice brisk walk. Your subordinate clause was, after finishing my work for the day. Therefore, your new sentence, if you did a swapsy, would have been, after finishing my work for the day, comma, really important, you remember that punctuation, I usually go for a nice brisk walk. Okay, another one for you. The party was great, although the music was rather loud. Again, spot the main, spot the subordinate, do a swapsy. What would your new sentence be? Press pause now. Okay, again, I hope I've given you enough time, but you should have paused the video, so make sure you do that again if you need more. The main would have been, the party was great. The subordinate would have been, although the music was rather loud. So your new sentence should have been after your swapsy, although the music was rather loud, comma, the party was great. Okay, now we have practiced switching our subordinate with our main. Here is your independent task. I have given you 5 sentence starters. What I want you to do is complete it by adding the extra clause. Now be careful, some of these might already be subordinate clauses, so you might have to put in a main clause. Once you have done that, you can then rewrite the sentence as a challenge to change the way they sound. So do a swapsy with the clauses again. So again, look at the phrase that I've given you, complete the sentence with either a subordinate or a main clause, and then as a challenge, if you would like, do a swapsy and make your sentence sound slightly different. If you want to up-level your sentences from what I've given you, absolutely do that. I would love to see your work. Very well done as always, and I look forward to seeing all your wonderful uploads on Cecil. See you on Monday.